A fairy tale begins with a childless king and queen who are finally blessed with a princess after the queen eats a magical rose. During the kingdom celebration, the infant princess receives blessings from her fairy godmother and 12 magicians. Magicians bestow gifts upon the princess, including virtue, unparalleled beauty, and a voice like a nightingale's song, ensuring she receives the finest blessings. The young red-haired princess was destined for a wonderful life, seen here enjoying a peaceful day with her parents and dog. But fate had other plans for the smiling red-haired princess. A dark-haired man with burning red eyes appears, as love itself lulls the princess into a deep slumber. 700 years later, the once blessed kingdom has fallen into a cursed, thorny ruin under a blood-red moon. Legend tells of a lovesick princess sleeping for centuries amidst the thorns, waiting for a true love's kiss to awaken her. A dark entity with glowing eyes scoffs at the legend, plotting to plunder the princess's lands and treasures instead. A mysterious blonde figure in a wide-brimmed hat stands before the thorny forest, contemplating a choice. A sinister smile crosses the blonde-haired figure's face. After a long slumber, the princess's eyes finally open. The red-haired princess awakens, confused in a dark, cobweb-covered room. She realizes no prince has come for her, and that this waking world feels like hell, for he had stolen everything from her. In a new setting, the red-haired woman is accosted by a crowned man for her ragged clothes, but a young blonde boy defends her. A blonde man in a princely uniform makes an offer, which the red-haired woman honorably accepts. A woman in a green dress and tiara, hiding behind a fan, finds the entire situation strange. While the blonde man compliments the red-haired woman's beauty, she silently calls him a pervert. A gray-haired woman with green eyes watches, thinking the newcomer is weird. The blonde man invites Princess Rosemary to stay at the palace, an offer she accepts on the condition that there is food. 3 noble women react to her request. One hums, one is shocked, and one begins to cry. The king remarks to the queen that the prince hasn't changed, suggesting they let the princesses stay, which gives the queen an idea. The queen, hiding her expression with a fan, suggests they use the old way to find the real princess. A purple-haired maid leads Princess Rosemary and her light blue-haired male companion to their room. As the blue-haired man stands by, Princess Rosemary is unimpressed by the golden decor, immediately asking for food. Flustered by the request, the purple-haired maid hastily orders other servants to bring a meal. A meal consisting entirely of peas is served, much to the horror of the blue-haired man. The maid cheerfully explains that peas are the staple food of the Sadie'ville kingdom, as the land is rich with them. The maid recounts the kingdom's history, explaining that it was once a poor and barren land. She continues, telling of a prince who brought back a treasure that, after much prayer, miraculously made peas grow and save the people. The maid reveals the treasure is a ring that only a real princess can wear, which would bring endless wealth, explaining why the prince is searching for one. After her story, the maid invites Princess Rosemary to see the beautiful pea garden behind the palace. Alone in their room, Rosemary and her blue-haired companion sit silently, their stomachs rumbling with hunger. The blue-haired man sighs, relieved to drop his act, and offers to test the food for the princess first. He turns in shock to see that Princess Rosemary has already started eating without him. Wiping her mouth, Rosemary confesses she's been starving for 3 days and complains about the hard life she's led as a princess. The blue-haired man expresses his sympathy, surprised by the desolation of their castle, and urges her to eat more slowly. Rosemary suddenly grabs her companion Hans and orders him to eat as well, demanding he find a way to take the leftovers with them. With their mouths full, Rosemary grimly reminds Hans that they are broke and must ration their food for the next 3 days. The dining table is left with nothing but empty, wiped, clean plates. After bathing, Rosemary marvels at the palace's golden baths, admitting even her own kingdom of Argies was never so extravagant. Hans gently dries Rosemary's hair with a towel, chiding her for not being careful and risking a cold. A blushing Hans immediately apologizes, explaining it was a force of habit from when the princess was still a child. Hans presents the luxurious bed, and Rosemary comments on the country's obvious wealth. Hans is flustered by her invitation, stammering that there is only one bed available. Lounging casually, Rosemary condescendingly permits him to sleep near her as a reward for his obedience on their journey. Overcome with emotion, Hans tearfully thanks the princess for her generosity in sharing the bed. Rosemary crushes his hopes, pointing to the floor as his spot. Lying in their separate beds, she reminds him that becoming her servant was his choice, as she requires no one else. Lying on the floor, Hans warns the princess to be careful, as Prince Kramer is clearly interested in her, which has already made Princess Lisa intensely jealous. Rosemary teases a blushing Hans about his attentiveness, but he insists it's merely his responsibility. As she settles for the night, Rosemary tells Hans to sleep, privately plotting that if the ring is hers, she'll deal with the prince. Snore, snore. Hans falls asleep instantly, and Rosemary affectionately calls him a simple-minded puppy. A portrait of a smiling blonde woman is shown in an ornate frame, followed by a request to support the creators. On the second day, 3 princesses take tea together in an elegant, sunlit conservatory. Princess Angel greets the others, while Princess Emma gushes over how comfortable the palace is compared to her home. A dark-haired woman, Princess Lisa, declares that Prince Kramer will be hers and warns the others to behave. Another blonde woman mocks Lisa, reminding her that the prince ignored her at the ball to dance with the red-haired girl instead. The blonde woman continues, stating they're all there for the same reason and that none of them are more noble than the others. She admits that she, too, wishes to become a princess, but feels she has no other choice. Enraged, Princess Lisa blames the red-haired girl for her troubles, fuming over her tattered dress and rude entrance. Princess Rosemary and her servant arrive late. She apologizes for his clumsiness, and a green-haired princess graciously invites them to sit. Princess Angel greets Rosemary correctly, guessing she isn't from Sadie'ville, while Princess Lisa scoffs in the background. Rosemary logically points out that all the princesses must be from different countries, much to Hans's silent dismay. Princess Angel asks Rosemary about the princess's test, and Rosemary shows her interest in learning more. Angel explains that to find the real princess, candidates must pass Her Majesty's test, which is rumored to be just sleeping in a room for one night. Rosemary questions why no one has passed such a simple test and asks about the fate of the failed princesses, while Angel admits their fates are unknown. Panicked, Princess Emma declares she cannot go home and would rather be exiled than fail. Princess Lisa resolves to pass the test, as Princess Angel announces she has been chosen to be the first to take it tonight. Outraged, Lisa questions how Angel could be chosen first, but Angel simply laughs it off as good luck. As the princesses argue, Hans urges Rosemary to intervene, but the green-haired princess tries to de-escalate the fight. Ignoring the commotion, Princess Rosemary calmly sips her tea, unbothered by the unfolding drama. Lowering her cup, she confidently declares that she will be the winner, shocking a nearby Hans. Rosemary clarifies that she doesn't care about becoming a princess, but hates to lose, and has her own reasons for passing the test. Princess Angel proclaims that her lifelong dream and practice have prepared her to become the mistress of the palace. Bidding the others farewell, Princess Angel leaves to prepare for the test, asking them to wish her luck. Later, the queen gravely announces that Princess Angel has failed the test, shocking the other princesses. Hans notes how quickly she was rejected, and Rosemary asks where Princess Angel has gone. The queen casually replies that Angel has already left, and asks who will be the next to take the test. Princess Lisa furiously steps forward, vowing that no one will steal her turn to take the test. A frightened Princess Emma confides in Rosemary, who then volunteers to go next and tells Emma to run if something goes wrong. With tears in her eyes, Princess Emma helplessly asks where she is supposed to run. The scene shifts to Rosemary and Hans walking through the vast pea garden. They stand together silently among the rows of pea vines. Hans mentions Lisa's upcoming trial, while Rosemary wonders aloud why the other girls are so obsessed with becoming real princesses. Rosemary explains it's because they aren't real princesses, merely common girls chasing a dream that society has pushed on them. The revelation stuns Hans, who finally understands why something felt off about the other princesses. Rosemary confirms that they are just ordinary girls from common families. She explains they were sent to the palace in a slim hope of becoming royalty, suspecting their families were well paid, before Hans asks about her own motivations. Hans presses further, asking the princess why she is searching for a prince. Rosemary turns away, her expression unreadable, as she refuses to answer his question. Hans recalls this look from when they first met, flashing back to the cursed, thorn-covered kingdom of Argies. In his memory, Hans approaches an elder, who warns him away from Argies, calling it a place that has been dead for years. The elder describes a desolate land shrouded in death, where thorns and corpses lie, and from which no one ever returns. When Hans reveals he seeks the sleeping princess, the elder scoffs at the legend, stating only a prince's true love's kiss can save her. The elder ominously questions why she remains asleep, sharing a dark rumor that the princess has become a demon. He horrifies Hans with a tale of princes being eaten, showing a demonic princess holding a bloody heart, prompting Hans to call him a liar. The flashback continues with Hans standing before the impenetrable wall of thorns surrounding the castle, unable to pass. He narrates that it was then he saw her emerge from the darkness, parting the thorns as she walked toward him. He remembers being captivated as her red hair burned like a flame against the darkness. Hans holds the wounded Rosemary, asking in shock how she is here and covered in wounds. He recalls her desperately asking for her prince, noting the look in her eyes was the same as it is now, before shaking off the memory. In the garden, Prince Kramer kisses Rosemary's hand, dismissing an annoyed Hans as he compares her beauty to the scenery. Kramer leads Rosemary away by the hand to show her something special, leaving a shocked Hans behind. As they walk, Rosemary asks what makes these peas different from ordinary ones. Prince Kramer slyly tells Mary it's a secret he's sharing only because she is special. He opens a pea pod, revealing its contents. Rosemary stares in disbelief at the golden orb inside, questioning if it's gold. The prince confirms it is, explaining that the regular peas are merely for show. He reveals the kingdom's secret wealth. All the peas contain gold, offering it all to her if she marries him. Kramer boasts that the gold is an inexhaustible supply that grows back endlessly. As blood-spattered golden peas lie on the ground, he asks if it's wonderful, but Rosemary stares down with a grim expression. The scene shifts to the queen showing Princess Lisa to her room for the trial, explaining she only needs to spend one night there. Standing before the door, a determined Princess Lisa tells herself she must win no matter what. Crying a single tear, she thinks of someone she must return to. A close-up reveals her hand reaching for a weapon strapped to her thigh beneath her dress. Prince Kramer promises Rosemary that she is special and will become the most revered woman in the kingdom, asking her to rule beside him. When Rosemary asks about the legendary ring, he promises to place it on her finger himself once their engagement is announced after the trial. He leans in and whispers a secret to her about the upcoming trial. He warns her that during the night of the trial, she must not close her eyes. Later, Rosemary tells Hans she needs to find Lisa, but he reminds her that Lisa is currently undergoing her trial. They find Princess Emma, and Rosemary urgently declares they must find and stop Lisa before it's too late. A frightened Emma questions Rosemary's plan to barge in and drag Lisa out of the trial. As Emma and Hans express their fears of being caught, Rosemary ignores them and finds the door is locked. She casually picks the lock, shocking Hans, who demands to know when she learned that skill. The three enter the pitch-black room, with Emma nervously calling out for Princess Lisa. A candelabra suddenly lights itself, and Emma screams as Hans draws his sword. Ah! Emma screams in horror at the sight of Princess Lisa's dead body entangled in dark thorns. Kneeling by the body, Rosemary grimly concludes that Lisa was murdered as sacrifice for the ring. She finds a locket in Lisa's hand containing a portrait of her with two other women. Rosemary looks on in silent contemplation. Declaring the locket useless, she senses someone approaching and turns to leave, only to find Hans has fainted. Back in their room, the three reconvene, with a traumatized Emma sitting on the bed. A terrified Emma cries, wondering what she will do now that Angel and Lisa are gone. Rosemary declares she will take the trial tomorrow, telling Emma to use the opportunity to flee. Emma tearfully asks where she would even flee to. Rosemary gives Emma a piece of gold and her horse, urging her to escape and assuring her the maids will help. Overcome with emotion, Emma thanks her but then refuses the offer. She begs Princess Mary to escape with her and abandon the dangerous princess charade. Hans suddenly appears with a packed bag, agreeing they must leave. As Rosemary notes, he's already packed. Rosemary gently comforts Emma, telling her not to worry about her. She leans in close, confidently stating that ordinary princes cannot kill her. A flashback shows Kramer warning Rosemary never to close her eyes during the test. Finding the locket useless and hearing someone approach, Rosemary turns to leave, but finds Hans has fainted again, calling him useless. The following night, the Queen welcomes Princess Rosemary, announcing that it's her turn to take the trial. Dressed in a nightgown, Rosemary stands nervously beside a tense Hans. The Queen presents an enormous bed piled high with dozens of mattresses where Rosemary will sleep. Hans whispers in relief that the room has been cleaned up, quickly denying it when the queen asks what he said. Rosemary stares at the towering pile of bedding, asking why the bed is like this. The queen explains there are 20 mattresses and duvets, but Rosemary simply replies that she already knows. Hans cheerfully offers to sleep on the floor, while Rosemary thinks to herself to just let him be. The queen announces the room will be locked, wishing Rosemary a sweet dream with a sinister smile. Hans finds the impeccably clean room creepy, while Rosemary weighs Kramer's warning against her need to sleep to uncover the truth. Deciding to sleep, Rosemary lies down, prompting a shocked Hans to ask if she's just going to sleep like that. But she reminds him of Angel's warning about a man appearing at midnight. Rosemary scoffs at the idea of being afraid of a mere man. Hans vows to stand guard in the dark and gloomy room, feeling he can't let her sleep alone after what happened to Lisa. He asks the princess if she can feel the invisible, resentful aura in the room. When Rosemary asks if he means a ghost, she suddenly appears surrounded by candles and blue flames, terrifying Hans. She quickly covers his mouth, scolding him for being rude. Lying awake, Rosemary resolves to find the root cause of the test, prompting Hans to offer singing her a lullaby. He agrees with a smile and begins to sing a gentle song of a mother's love. Listening to the music, Rosemary finds the melody strangely peaceful. The soothing melody works too well, as Hans suddenly falls asleep on her bed before she does. As the clock strikes midnight, a candle flickers out, and a dark voice announces it's time to enter an eternal dream. A grim reaper appears, demanding her soul and body as it attacks with its scythe. The skeletal figure looms over the flickering candles in the darkness. Holding a candelabra, Rosemary confronts the Reaper, calling it the soul-hunting culprit, causing it to recoil in pain. The Reaper's hood falls, revealing a young man with black hair and red eyes as Rosemary recognizes him. The hooded man looks at her in surprise, asking, "Rose?" Rosemary calmly confirms her identity, greeting her old friend. She explains that the talk of gold and a ring immediately brought him to mind, vowing to never forget his hateful face. The Grim Reaper asks why Rose is awake, but she retorts that she knows everything he did, and questions how many more souls his empty heart needs to collect. He looks away in shame, confused by her presence and begging her not to look at his scarred face, admitting they are both unable to kill each other. Vowing to regain her memories to find a way to kill him, Rosemary declares she will never live in a dream again. Hans awakens, asking who she was talking to, as a message of regret fills the scene. Rosemary sits silently on the bed, her back to the dawning light. The queen bursts into the room, shocked and amazed, declaring that Princess Rosemary has succeeded. Prince Kramer arrives, warmly greeting Princess Rosemary and noting that she must not have slept well. Rosemary confirms she couldn't sleep, calling the bed uncomfortable, while the queen marvels that only a real princess could feel the pee under so many mattresses. A gleeful king celebrates that Kramer has found the real princess, securing the kingdom's future prosperity. Prince Kramer kisses her hand, professing his love and asking her to marry him. Rosemary internally scoffs, knowing it's impossible to feel a pee under 40 quilts. Surrounded by the celebrating, masked royal family, Rosemary finds their ferocious, hypocritical smiles nauseating. Admiring a wedding dress from Kramer, Rosemary muses that it would sell for a lot of money before asking Hans for his thoughts. A horrified Hans asks if she is truly getting engaged to Prince Kramer. Rosemary calmly questions why he is so nervous when she is the one getting engaged. Hans grabs her, desperately arguing that she can't marry a man she doesn't know, and questioning her true motives for coming here. She pointedly asks if he cares who she marries, causing a flustered Hans to shout that he doesn't agree. Dismissing his feelings, she tells him to pack his things, leaving him to wonder why. Gazing at the moonlit sky, Rosemary declares it a perfect night for an engagement. She instructs Hans to help her deal with the trash so they can begin their next journey as she appears in her wedding dress in a forest. Rosemary stands resolute in her wedding gown and veil under the moonlight. Prince Kramer praises her dress, but she cuts straight to the point, asking if he brought the ring. He presents a sinister red ring, the eyes of death, telling her she must wear it to become his wife and one of them, just like his mother. As the ring nears her finger, fragmented memories flash before her eyes, and she realizes she remembers it. Kramer declares the ring a perfect fit, but Rosemary stares at it, wondering how it could be. As the ring glows, her white gown transforms into a flowing black dress, and she recalls a saying about death staring back. Kramer cries out in shock, asking why the gown turned black. As Rosemary thinks about the fog in her mind since waking up, she looks down at the glowing red ring on her hand. Memories flood back as she recognizes the ring as the left eye of the Grim Reaper, a promise of love from a man who once praised her beauty. In a memory, the man with black hair offers a bloody eyeball, promising it as proof of their happiness. Placing a ring on her finger, he desperately begs her to never leave him. Rosemary reflects that she never realized this beautiful dream was just a cage made for her. The memory shows her trapped in a cage of blood under a sinister red eye. Back in the present, Rosemary declares it no longer matters, for she has come to take back what is hers. Prince Kramer pleads with her to stop joking, but she slyly suggests she invited them to witness their engagement, making him ask in fear who they are. She mocks him for forgetting so soon, as demonic red spirits rise from the ground behind her. Kramer screams in terror at the sight of the ghosts, calling Rosemary insane and screaming for his guards. The scene shifts to Hans, who stands before a man eerily frozen in a large crystal formation. A tear falls from Hans's eye as he touches the crystal, hearing Kramer's distant screams. A dark hand reaches for Prince Kramer as he desperately begs the spirits to stay away. Kramer breaks down, admitting he remembers them and promising to give them a proper burial if they just tell him what they want. The spirits wail as Kramer, mistaking their sorrow for greed, desperately offers them all his gold. As he begs for his life, Rosemary stabs him, identifying the dagger as Lisa's, and reminding him of his tradition. She tells him he wasn't looking for a princess, but for a docile accomplice. Kramer screams that the pure souls were meant to grow gold, while filth like him grows nothing, calling them trash whose greatest honor was to nourish the peak. In a fit of madness, he proclaims that the kingdom's wealth is all thanks to him and his sacrifices. The spirits overwhelm him, and he screams for help, cursing Rosemary as they drag him down. Rosemary coldly wishes Prince Kramer goodnight, hoping he sleeps forever, hidden like the pea. She watches as his bloody hand sinks into the earth, leaving no trace behind. Hans arrives, staring in shock at the freshly disturbed ground where the prince vanished. When Hans asks where Kramer is, Rosemary tells him he's been planted and that they should go. The forest around the castle is now ablaze. Standing on a balcony overlooking the fire, Rosemary explains that the sacrificed girls were just offerings in a trade. Declaring their sacrifice was stolen, she raises her hand and proclaims that they are now truly free. The freed spirits of the young women ascend into the starry night sky. Hans recognizes the girls as their spirits float by them, finally at peace. A blonde-haired spirit turns to smile, thanking Princess Rosemary for her help. Another spirit with gray hair also addresses Rosemary by name before she departs. The spirit offers her dagger to Rosemary, asking her to give a pendant to her sister before fading away. As the last of the spirits vanish, Hans quietly notes that they're gone. Rosemary recalls her mother teaching her that a human's reincarnating soul is a priceless treasure. Hans reflects on the finality of a short human life, prompting Rosemary to tease him for being sentimental. Hans asks if the ring freed the girls and why she hid her plan, but Rosemary states her endless journey to kill and reclaim has just begun, offering him a chance to turn back. Before Hans can answer, shouts erupt from below as guards discover the fire and the missing prince. Panicked, Hans grabs Rosemary to flee, but she calmly asks if he was the one who killed the prince, shocking him as she calls him a silly child. Holding her close, Hans quietly begs to go with her, then loudly repeats that he won't regret it. They watch the castle burn from afar as Hans asks what will happen to the king and queen. A new chapter begins, titled Change 1, showing symbols of royalty and wealth. A peasant cries out in shock as his gold coins turn to worthless stone. A nobleman is horrified to discover his gold from the royal palace has also become stone. All over, the wealthy and powerful find their golden plates and jewelry are now rocks, realizing they've been tricked. Two young girls sadly look at a locket that was once gold, wondering why it changed. As citizens lament their lost, unspent gold, an angry mob forms outside the palace demanding answers. The crowd roars that their gold has turned to stone, accusing the royals of deceit. The king and queen watch in horror as their people threaten to rebel for being tricked out of their daughters. A father in the crowd screams for the return of their precious daughters. Rosemary looks on, her expression resolute under a dark hood. The grand castle is consumed by a raging inferno. A final ornate portrait shows a much younger and happier Rosemary. Rosemary recalls the ordinary lives of the sacrificed girls Angel the Maid, Lisa the blacksmith's sister, and Emma the tavern girl, as a green-haired girl sits in a barrel. A dark, ethereal energy swirls around a hand clutching the gifted dagger. Now with red hair, Rosemary examines the dagger, remarking on how well forged it is. As Hans expresses hope for the girls' families, Rosemary smirks with determination, vowing to never be a real princess again. She sits wearily on a log, announcing she's tired and that her feet are sore from their long journey. She asks Hans if he brought any food, and he prepares to check his bag. Holding up a bag of pea cakes, Hans expresses his disgust, and Rosemary tells him to throw them away. Looking toward a massive fortress, Hans explains their next destination is Bregent, a notoriously warlike nation. He asks if she's sure about going to such a dangerous place, but she only asks if there are princes there. A sly smile crosses her face as she muses about what kind of prince she will find there. Hans realizes her intentions, a worried look turning into a mischievous thought that the prince is in danger. Finding a pond in the forest, he decides to stop and get some water. A sudden rustle in the trees startles him, and he defensively yells out, "Who's there?" A small, innocent deer emerges from the bushes. Visibly relieved, Hans sighs that it was only a deer. He kneels to greet the deer, gently asking if it also came for a drink of water. Rosemary appears behind him, and he excitedly calls her over to see the cute deer. She looks on in mild surprise, questioning if it's really a deer. In a shocking turn, she viciously attacks the deer as Hans screams in horror. Carrying the dead animal, she declares they finally have meat, while Hans protests that it was too cute to eat. As they cook the meat over a fire, she asks if it's good. He replies that it's delicious while crying. She complains about their rough life, dreaming of a luxury inn in Bregent. But Hans questions how they can afford it. With a triumphant laugh, she reveals a single golden pea, shocking Hans. She explains that Prince Kramer gave her 2, and unlike all the other gold, hers never turned to stone. Hans examines the pea, disturbed that it was created from human blood, and worries that using it will attract ghosts, causing him to scream at the thought. As he recoils in fear, the golden pea slips from his grasp and plops into the pond. A bead of sweat runs down his face as he realizes his mistake with a single thought, crap. A frog wearing a crown emerges from the water, asking the fair maiden if she lost the bronze or the silver ball. The second volume, titled Frog Prince, begins. Emerging from the pond, the crowned frog asks the fair lady if the bronze or silver ball he holds is hers. As if being dragged down, Rosemary cries out that she dropped the gold one, desperately screaming for help. The frog coughs, thinking that while the lady is surprisingly strong, he finds her unique charm appealing. Hans points out in shock that the frog can talk, but Rosemary dismisses him to go wash her hands. The frog offers to retrieve the golden ball, but only if she agrees to one condition. She eyes him suspiciously, telling him to state his condition before she decides. With puckered red lips, the frog demands a passionate, soul-deep kiss. Rosemary and Hans stand in stunned silence at his bold request. She turns to Hans and orders him to do it, arguing it's his fault for losing the ball, much to his horror. The frog recoils from Hans, shouting that he's not into men, while Hans mutters that he didn't even move. The frog sadly explains he's actually a human under a curse that can only be broken by a kiss. Rosemary scoffs at the notion of true love's kiss, telling him to stop dreaming and accept his fate as a frog. The frog cries out that he's telling the truth, declaring he is a prince from Bregent who has been waiting 7 years for help. Her eyes narrow with sudden interest upon hearing he is the Prince of Bregent. Holding the small frog, Hans warns him that a real prince would be roasted, not kissed, leaving the frog confused. With a cold expression, Rosemary steps forward and offers to give him a goodnight kiss. The frog is overjoyed by her offer, while a nervous Hans thinks the situation is getting very bad. Turning her back on the frog, she tells Hans to take the gold and prepare to leave. The frog frantically clings to her dress, begging to be taken with them, but she kicks him away, calling him sticky and gross. Hans holds the dejected frog, cryptically telling him he's out of his depth and wishing him farewell. The frog prince tearfully begs Rosemary not to go, insisting he is a real prince. Dejected, the frog floats in the pond, fearing he'll be stuck this way forever if she doesn't return. A dark thought emerges, questioning if this fate is some kind of punishment. The story flashes back 200 years as the second prince arrives at a thorny castle, where a hooded figure asks if he seeks the princess or a treasure. The prince declares his desire for invincible power, and the hooded figure offers him the second hand from a giant clock. Promising it will become the sharpest blade, when soaked in hot blood, the hooded figure gives the weapon to the prince, who accepts his new friend. As the prince agrees to awaken the purest soul in return, he coats the blade with his blood before the scene shifts to the palace of Bregent. The grand and opulent palace of Bregent is revealed in all its splendor. A frantic man runs through a stone corridor, shouting for the prince about a terrible event. With tears in his eyes, the man reports the tragic news that the queen has passed away. Bathing among roses, the prince dismisses the queen's death with cold indifference, ordering a simple funeral for the woman who hated him. A formal portrait shows the late queen, a beautiful woman with long, silver-gray hair. Rosemary's Fairy Tales. The queen's gravestone stands in a field of carnations, planted in her honor. The prince finds his father, the king, by a window and asks if he's upset about the queen's death. The king scoffs, calling the queen an unstable old woman, and redirects the conversation to conquering the Atholan Empire with their prince, Laser. Prince Laser agrees to the plan, bored with peace and confident that his magic sword makes him invincible. Lady-in-Waiting asks the king about selecting a new queen, noting that many beautiful girls from vassal families have been assembled. The king rejects the vassal girls as unworthy, but hints that he already has a specific candidate in mind. The reflections of the king and Prince Laser are seen in the window as they plot. The silver-haired princess from the portrait sits alone in a garden, looking melancholic. Prince Laser smirks to himself, marveling at the twisted depths of human greed and desire. As the king approaches, the silver-haired princess looks up and nervously addresses him as father. The king grins unsettlingly, complimenting his daughter on her growing beauty. His words fill the princess with horror, her eyes wide with tears as rain begins to fall. The city falls into a somber silence following the queen's death. Arriving in the city, Hans observes that the people are mourning their beloved queen. A royal decree is announced. War has been declared, and all boys aged 12 and up must join the army. A mother clings to her son, desperately pleading with the guards not to take her child. The guards ignore her pleas and drag the crying boy away as he calls for his mother. The mother reaches out in anguish, screaming her son Elio's name as he's taken. Rosemary watches the forced conscription, remarking that this kingdom is just as cruel as Sadwell. Hans explains to Rosemary that they are about to witness the public execution of war deserters by guillotine. A young man scheduled for execution begs for his life, pleading for his mother and younger siblings. A woman in the crowd shames him as a coward while a nobleman incites the people, who chant for the deserters' heads. As the guillotine's blade hangs ready, the condemned man closes his eyes and prays to God. Thud. Two heads roll across the stone ground. A horrified Hans gags at the sight of the execution, while Rosemary remains impassive. Onlooking women sadly note that no one dared to defend the men, which is why their town is mostly women and children. Hans urges Rosemary to flee the dangerously mad country, but she refuses, her curiosity about its prince now piqued by the cruelty. Rosemary sees the king's search for a new wife as the perfect chance to infiltrate the palace and uncover the source of the kingdom's corruption. Realizing they've drawn unwanted attention, Rosemary decides it's time for them to move. Two guards spot Hans, declaring him a strong man fit for the army and move to capture him. As the guards seize him, Hans panics and pleads for Rosemary to save him from being forced into war. Rosemary leans in close, secretly instructing Hans to gather intelligence on the army and any treasures the country might hold. With a cunning smile, she wishes him well, wryly telling him not to lose his head. A stunned Hans can only think, "You're kidding!" as he's dragged away by the guards. A preview shows a princess with silver-gray hair wearing a rough animal skin cloak. The second volume of the story begins, titled The Frog Prince. Inside the palace, several noblewomen await an audience with the king. A red-haired noblewoman wonders why the king is absent, while another woman urges her to be quiet. Two other ladies lament that while the king has already chosen someone, they cannot leave until formally dismissed. As the king and Prince Laser arrive, the king asks his son why so many women are gathered. Prince Laser reminds his father they are the candidates for his new wife, prompting two of the women to look downcast. The prince glances over his shoulder, a look of curiosity on his face. The red-haired woman meets his gaze with a cold, unwavering stare. A single tear falls from Prince Laser's eye, seemingly moved by her intensity. When the king asks what's wrong, Lyser dismisses seeing a woman with a fierce gaze as just his imagination. The king declares that the women are no longer needed, then announces his intention to marry his own daughter, Princess Awan. While others react in shock, the red-haired woman crudely insults the king, earning a sharp warning from her companion. Princess Awan appears in a donkey skin cloak, refusing to marry her father. The enraged king accuses her of killing his prized donkey, Seiran. Two ladies whisper that Seiran was the king's favorite donkey, said to produce a gold coin for him every day. The king roars in fury, questioning why she would kill his donkey after he gifted her such extravagant wedding dresses. Unfazed by her attempt to look ugly, the king declares he will marry her today and orders his men to seize her. Princess Awan holds a glowing red sword to her neck, warning everyone to stay away. The red-haired woman stares in sudden recognition. Prince Lyser yells in alarm, questioning how his sister stole the magic sword. Princess Awan threatens to end everything, vowing that everyone will perish with her if they come any closer. Lyser desperately pleads with her, shouting for her blood not to touch the magic sword. The red-haired woman suddenly grabs Prince Lyser, telling the princess to run while she handles the situation. With tears in her eyes, Princess Awan gives a solemn nod. The princess turns and vanishes into a brilliant white light. Holding a blade to Lyser's throat, the red-haired woman asks if he is the prince, claiming she has business with him. A sweating Lyser nervously confirms his identity as she presses the blade closer, asking if he's sure. She coolly states that liars should have their heads chopped off as he begins to stammer. Gah! In a swift motion, she slices his throat, sending blood flying. Leaning against a shattered window, she nonchalantly bids him goodbye. The king rushes to his son's side, but Lyser clutches his bleeding neck and insists he's fine. Lyser thinks to himself that the woman showed absolutely no hesitation. The king panics over the stolen sword, but Lyser tells him to forget the red-haired woman and prioritize finding Princess Awan. Back at the city's execution grounds, an announcer calls for the next deserter to be brought to the guillotine. A bound man with blue hair pleads that he's just a tourist, but a guard dismisses his claim as a lie. As the guard orders the execution, the man looks up at the blade in sheer terror, realizing it's all over. A preview for the next chapter teases that the prince is a monster,